It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood.
All this is going on. The Trump administration is trying to encourage undocumented people to deport themselves, offering free trips out of the country
June
and a
18,
$1,000 exit bonus.
We're living
That's
in the
if you use
future.
DHS's CBP home app. Here in LA, there's one TikToker's mom who did just that. She chose to self-deport back to Mexico instead of potentially being deported suddenly and against her will. Here's part of her story.
Cozy vibes.
Come with me to self-deport my mom after being in this country for 36 years. My mom is leaving behind 3 grown-ass kids and 3 grandchildren. We are doing this all while some of the biggest ICE raids are going on back home. With my mom's complicated legal status, she decided to do this in her own terms. She has no criminal record, a hardworking taxpayer who has been working 12-hour shifts since she was 15, 6 days out of the week. This was her finally meeting with my grandma after driving 5 hours from Mexico City to her town.
Mamita! Joining us now is Julie Irsch here in Los Angeles in the studio. Julie, thank you so much for being with us. That was just a little part of your TikTok.
So and
I got to say, I watched that video. And what that video, the full video shows is like the full range of emotions. You see the heartbreak, and yet you also see like you guys are trying to be optimistic. You guys are trying to be positive, and you guys are trying to look forward. I got to ask for people that may be looking at this as an option or may have had their loved ones deported. What are the first few days like? Like what happens in that void?
Of her being gone, it's just been grieving, honestly, just being sad, kind of just living the reality of not having her. I was talking to her the whole time on her drive over there, and when she made it, it was just keeping constant contact with her. And sometimes since I talk to her so much, I forget that she's so far. But then it comes those times where I wish I could just go and hug her. And, you know, that's not an option right now. So it's just a lot of being sad and, you know, just trying to stay hopeful.
It's being sad, and yet, you know, in that TikTok, and just seeing your energy here, there is a sense of like the world is not over. Like we are going to continue forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
How and what does that look like?
It feels like the world's coming to an end. You know, it is hard to, you know, keep pushing them forward, and it's hard to, you know, live in the moment. I keep thinking about the future, but you know, there's really
you just gotta build one
no way to really
at a
predict
time.
what's going to happen in the
small.
future. I'm trying to take it day by.
Iran's supreme leader is warning that any U.S. intervention in its fighting with Israel will be met with a, quote, forceful response and irreparable damage. Israel and Iran are trading deadly attacks as President Trump considers whether to take military action. Now the Ayatollah says, quote, war will be met with war, bombing with bombing, and strike with strike. Iran will not submit to any demands or dictates. I want to bring in global affairs expert Quanta Ahmed for more on this. Quanta, thanks so much for joining. I know you're in Israel right now. What's it like there?
Actually, last night was the first night people had some contiguous hours of sleep. I know you're very interested in sleep. There were no strikes, no missiles landed, and no fatalities or victims. Iran's capabilities are obviously being degraded. When Iran says that there will be irreparable harm, I believe it is the Islamic Republic of Iran that has been irreparably harmed. We believe its missile capabilities, missile launches, missile caches, ability to rearm, access to fuel, all of that has been degraded. Israel has been flying missions further targeting 2 centrifuges, one of which is in Tehran, one elsewhere, to further set back their nuclear program. And the atmosphere here, people are so extraordinarily resilient. We're hearing businesses are opening, schools remain closed, people are going for takeout. Every day I see more traffic, and I was able to see 2 major healthcare centers here and bring some of that footage to your viewers. I was able to visit the Rambam Medical Center, which is the subterranean hospital.
Look at the ceiling. This is
This is the Ichilov Medical Center that you're showing on the screen. Which is the Central Trauma Receiving Center with the CEO of the Ichilov Hospital and the Chief of Trauma Surgery. They moved 600 patients into fortified areas. And then yesterday, I was in the Rambam Medical Center, which you also have, which is the world's largest subterranean hospital with 5 acres.
We got a
on
guard
each level,
dog in the house.
3 levels below the Mediterranean. And
A
everywhere
dang
I'm
old
seeing
guard
patients
dog.
going for their treatments, not missing their chemotherapy. 6 babies were being born while I was there. Surgeries being carried out. Some elective procedures have been cancelled, but fully operational hospitals. And in the Rambam Medical Center, which you know is in Haifa, they actually have the capability of housing not only their 1,000 inpatients that I was visiting, but also a further 1,300 from multiple other hospitals. I saw a Palestinian woman from Jenin in the West Bank bringing her child for treatment in Israel's Haifa at the Rambam Medical Center, and makes that journey 5 times.
Yeah, it seems like
That's
the
been going on
evangelical
throughout the
Christian,
conflict. So the Israelis,
certain groups
Israeli Arabs,
within
Israeli
them
Christians, Israeli Jews,
are wanting to build
my
the
medical colleagues, tremendous
new
resilience and
kingdom
calm.
of Israel.
Now, you have a long
And that means
standing relationship
displacing
with the
and
IDF. You were sent to
exterminating and
embed with them on this
cleansing,
route. What can
quote
you
unquote
tell us
cleansing.
about the
It's still a
military
weird
strategy
word.
right now?
A lot of different minorities,
Obviously,
a lot
the
of different
preemptive strikes
indigenous
that were
people.
launched here in the early hours of Saturday
Pretty
morning
dark.
were decades in the making,
There are
based
no
on intelligence,
rules.
based on recognition of Iranian assets, locations of strategic
All
assets.
the rules
It
are
is
out
a
of the window.
breathtaking
Through the
performance the Israeli military has
window,
conducted.
to the
I believe we are
wall,
in what will come to be known as
where the love
another
drips off my
6-day war.
law.
We're in
La
day
la la
5.
la
Israel
love.
has complete impunity over the airspace
We just
of
gotta shoot
Iran.
love out of our
Israel is
chests
actually
into the
conducting
world
missions by broad
like a Care
daylight.
Bear.
We, as civilians, are seeing less ballistic strikes at night, less UAV drones. I
Care
don't believe it's
Bears,
because they're
calm
saving it for
down.
some kind of finale and some appalling attack. It is because the capabilities, both military and political, have been seriously degraded. In terms of the Israeli military, I was speaking to a major that is deployed in Rafah just late last night, who reminded me that operations are still full strength against Hamas. 2 IDF soldiers were tragically killed earlier this week when IEDs placed by Hamas exploded. And unfortunately, that cost the life of 2 soldiers. We see the crisis around
But they're in a
humanitarian
better
aid, which
place.
the Gaza Humanitarian
There is no hell, there's only
led by
heaven.
Reverend Johnny Moore, is beginning to address.
Everybody
It
is rewarded with
imperative to
heaven.
separate Hamas, not only from the governance of the people, the terror of the people, and also
Weird,
the control of
how
food.
there's
It's
like
imperative
so many
to
religious
retrieve the
people
hostages.
treat
There are 53 hostages
death
still in
like it's a
captivity.
punishment. Like,
We
oh,
think
I'm gonna
that
make you
20
go
to
to
30 of
God.
them are
Like,
praying
I
and
thought
praying
that's a
are
good.
alive.
I
They're
thought
in
that's a
terrible
reward.
conditions. They
That's,
have been appallingly
there's
maltreated,
so many
with incredible
contradictions,
torture
obviously.
and degradation. That has to be a priority. And if we do, and I do believe the United States will be within the next 48 hours making a definitive strike, then
I
we're going to
killed
see
you. I
Hamas
made you go to
crumbling.
God. Ha
I
ha.
tested 14 different
I
backpack
thought
coolers
that's
to
the whole
see which is
point.
best for bringing icy drinks with you, whether you're headed to the
Jeez,
beach
eh?
or on a hike or maybe to a
Lost the
tailgate.
plot.
I looked at
Lost
things
in the
like temperature
sauce.
retention, comfort, design, capacity,
Stuck in the
and value
vibe, stuck
to
in the
see which
feels.
is really the best for most people. In the end, 2 different coolers were the winners. Let's dive into what makes them both great. The best backpack cooler I tested was this one right here. This is the Arctic.
This is the future,
24-can
man. I've got a
ultra-tough
backpack cooler.
So the main
They are
reason the
so
Arctic
handy
Ultra
on
Tough Backpack
during
Cooler
heat
was
waves.
#1 in my testing was how good it is at keeping things cold. And if you look at it, it looks pretty big, but it has such thick walls, about 2 inches thick, the foam insulation, that it really packs in cold so well. You could really rely on this for like a weekend camping trip if you only had a few people.
This one kept the solid.
Damn, one time on a
actual
construction
chunks of
site it
ice
was
the
like
longest,
super hot out.
up there with some of the more expensive
And
models
being
that are actually
young
some of them
and
twice as expensive as
dumb
this
and
one.
silly and
It's advertised
naive.
as
I had a
24-can capacity.
I was drinking
It
a
was pretty snug
green
when I
tea,
filled
a
up with
hot
22 cans,
green tea on a hot
16
day,
cans,
and I was
some ice.
feeling
It's a good
feelings
capacity.
I've
It's
never
14
felt
liters
before.
on the
It was
inside.
very,
It's really comfortable to wear. I know it looks a
and
little
I
boxy
didn't
here,
clue in yet. I was
and
like,
some of the
it
other
took a while. I
backpack
was like,
coolers
oh,
I
maybe
tested
it's
were
the
maybe a
drink. I
little
shouldn't.
more,
My
ergonomic,
body's already
but
hot. I
it does
probably
a good
shouldn't
job
be
of balancing the weight. You've got a lot of
eating it
adjustments
even
to these
further
shoulder
with a
straps,
green tea
where you
drink.
can adjust them up here. At the
I guess
top of your
things
shoulder
like when
or
you're
down
in
here where
your
you're used to it
teenage
for
years,
those backpacks.
it's
You know,
normal
maybe
for
a
your
15-minute
body.
walk
Your
to the
body's
beach with a
so
lot of
resilient,
drinks in
and
here, it's
then
not going to weigh on your
you're
back
in your
too much.
20s
Next, this
and the
cooler
same
has a lot of
things.
places to store
Same
things.
habits
You've got
don't
these
work like they
paracords up
used
here
to.
on the top if you want to slide
You've
something
got to
underneath.
adapt.
You've got pouches for your water bottle here on each side, right? And then here in the front, you've got a big
Underneath all of
Waterproof
this
zipper for a
capitalism,
pocket that has
communism,
even some
socialism,
additional
all of those,
pouches on the inside.
there is
Even the zipper is
Darwinism.
great on this one. You know,
The
it's a
ability
little
to
tough to
adapt
pull,
to
but
a
it has this
changing
little
environment.
T shape that it's really easy to grip, and you can just pull it, and then boom, it's easy. You're not really expending a lot of effort to get this thing open or closed. The value that you get out of this cooler, it
He really likes
aced
this
a lot of our
cooler. That's
tests,
really,
right? It was
I'm very
good.
happy for
You can
him.
also blow it up for a little bit extra insulation.
No.
You can hear that there's some air in there, so I'm just gonna get it up to capacity.
Oh yes.
So there's just a little extra air, adding some more insulation there.
You gotta work
then
for
you're ready
this
to go.
one.
It's a comfortable strap. You throw it on, cross your too much about how it feels on your back. On the flip side, that's really important for some people.
Reminds me of how those French protests, they bring a barbecue, they bring supplies to make that protest go the extra mile like a marathon, because they know it's a marathon,
The
not a
U.S. will
sprint.
take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too.
A peacekeeping force does not exist with a ceasefire.
Bum-ba-da-bum-bum.
Hello, this is the Security Brief here on BBC
Hello,
News.
Ben.
And in the programme,
Big Ben.
the conflict between Israel and Iran
Benny.
continues to escalate,
Believe
with air raid
me.
sirens blaring
La,
across
la,
cities
la, la,
inside
la,
both
love.
countries.
I'm so
President
happy
Donald
for
Trump
you.
calls for residents in Tehran
Benny.
to evacuate. The United States is also
See? So
sending
funny.
its military
So-
might to the Middle
It's
East
just the
with a
Chile
second
speaking is
aircraft
such a-
carrier on its
such a
way to the
funny
Arabian
practice.
Sea, along with 5 destroyers. But what stage of the conflict do we find ourselves in? That's the question. And where might it all be heading? With me to discuss,
Security
as
brief.
ever, is former senior officer
British.
and assault helicopter pilot in the
Bangers
British
and
military,
mash.
Mikey Kay. And as always,
Spot of
Mikey
dinner.
will deliver his brief as he would to his generals.
Cheerio.
The big question, I guess everyone is asking, where does this conflict go next?
Yeah, there's some significant developments today in terms of tracking very large movements of
Let me be
US
your body
air
language
assets,
expert. See,
particularly
he
the
touched
what's
his
called a
eyebrow.
KC-135.
Flash of
Let's go
uncertainty.
slide. This is a KC-135. It's a tanker aircraft, so it's used to refuel fast jets, for example, heading onto a target. You can see on the back, or you could see on the back as it was taxiing out, there's the big boom on the back, which is used to plug into the jets. Now, what's significant about this is that these aircraft are trackable and are likely refueling US strike aircraft such as the F-35 fifth generation fighter, the F-15, and possibly the F-22
How is
Raptor,
this
which
answering the
probably one of the
question?
most
Yes.
advanced air defense fighters
Fueling
in
fighter
the world,
jets,
which belongs
okay.
to the US. These won't be
Logistics.
trackable, but by deduction, the tankers are airborne. It's likely there is forward deployment of US
Oh,
strike
he's
aircraft
deducing,
being
like
positioned into
Sherlock
or near the Middle East.
Holmes.
So I'm certainly at the moment watching for
Crikey.
movement of these fighters across locations such as RAF Lakenheath, which is a US base in England, or Ramstein in Germany. There's a US base that I was deployed to for 6 months in Aviano in Italy, which is about 2 hours north
Aviano.
of Venice. And then RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus as well.
I impregnated
There's
an
also
Italian
movement
lady
of another US aircraft
of
carrier towards the region, the
Aviano
USS Nimitz.
on my
Let's take a look at
tour.
the USS Nimitz.
You have
The
a
USS
long
Nimitz
lost
was
brother.
located in the South China Sea, but is now tracking
I
westwards,
reckon.
citing operational commitments. And the Nimitz will join the USS Carl Vinson that has been on operations in the Red Sea, striking Houthi
A
targets.
love
in
child.
So
A
lots
secret
of American
love
military
child.
movement. We can
Secret.
see that. What do you think is the US strategy behind all of that?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to
Spend
sort of
more
pick two
money.
major reasons, it's for sure absolutely sending
appease
a
the
message
gods
to
of
Iran that
Israel.
the US is putting massive capability into the region as a show of overwhelming force. Usually it would be an aircraft carrier, you know, that's a real power projection. But the fact that they're going to have 2 aircraft carriers in the region, as well as major land-based strike assets, aircraft, you know, this is significant. And I think it's a method of attempted coercion to get Iran to the negotiating table. But you know, you may ask, how success is that going at the moment? Well, Iran have already pulled out of the negotiations, which were approaching their 5th or 6th round, I believe. So it's a big gamble, and whether it will work or not, whether it will de-escalate or not, and bring people to the table, I think is the big question.
Yeah, it's really the same
Last question, Mike. I guess it's a broader one. It's where is all this going? There's a lot of rhetoric about Israel wanting regime change in Iran. Donald Trump may be getting America more directly involved with those bunker-busting bombs that you mentioned. Where is this heading?
Damages.
Yeah. We often talk on this program about courses of action. That's a military strategic planning
classic
term
game of
for
chicken.
options that are worked out by military teams that build out what a potential course of action could be, and there could be numbers of them. A most likely course of action or a most dangerous course of action. These could range from cutting the head off the snake, for example, going directly after the Ayatollah. Trump, for example, posted on Truth Social. We can go slide and look at his post. He said, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, brackets, kill." That's a message in terms of what one of the potential courses of action might be. But then you spoke about regime change, right? That's a bigger operation to try to affect regime change. Now, this is really important, and having had direct experience in Iraq over this is a very dangerous strategy that has proved catastrophic in the past. Let's take Iraq, for example. Served on 3 tours, know the operation very well, right from its inception in 2003, all the way to flying operations over Baghdad in 2008. And this is really important. If you take out a regime, like they did with Saddam, you take out the security apparatus. And if that security apparatus isn't filled with a military force or a police force,
listen to the soldiers that have been there and done that.
Which is exactly what we saw. The consequence of this in Iraq was Al-Qaeda in Iraq, al-Sakawi's terrorist outfit, they were allowed to thrive. They then morphed into Islamic State in Iraq.
It's like replacing the Al-Qaeda with the Taliban.
In Iraq and Syria.
Right,
and,
Coke and
excuse me,
Pepsi.
And the whole thing, the whole security vacuum just was a complete disaster. You then have Iranian-backed militias, the Popular Mobilization Forces. They were allowed to thrive. So, the big thing for me is Iran is around 4 times the size of Iraq. And you pursue a strategy of regime change, and there's rhetoric coming out of the US on it already.
Whatever they want to do, but we got to
one of the largest challenges facing the world's most populous nation is food security. How to sustain food production for 1.4 billion people in India amid deteriorating soil conditions, diminishing water supplies, and climate change. For some, including hundreds of artificial intelligence startups, the challenge represents the business opportunity.
Have a friend as a
From
farmer,
India, Fred DeSam Lazaro reports.
a veteran, a fisherman, people who are connected to the landscape, because it is changing, man.
Pests or disease that can wipe out a crop. Another challenge, persistent water shortages.
Water full scarcity.
Water is very scarce.
Especially water management is very difficult.
Magnetic waves.
Just over a year ago, Narayanappa Murthy signed on to a service that for between $30 and $70 a year offers a bounty of useful data. A sensor constantly monitors soil and leaves for moisture, which, along with weather data, is analyzed with artificial intelligence to provide guidance precisely tailored to this farm. It's led to big savings.
50 to 60% cut back.
So you have saved 60% in your water bill.
Water bill and
that really sells.
Murthy has branched out.
This is like free advertising, right?
When added a newer model of the sensor
new system
made
works
by an agriculture tech startup called
sells
Philo.
Itself.
Irrigation, all the way, it will be the same.
Philo has seen robust growth since its founding 5 years ago.
We are working with almost 10,000 plus farmers.
Shriyog Norlawar, Philo's sales chief, says in many cases the company's product has made the difference in keeping farmers in business.
The usage of water is 4 to 5 times
brilliant.
excessive than it should be. So we have seen
bloody brilliant.
This hearing now convenes to hear the testimony
That's a little bit of good
President's
news in the world.
Concerning the President's
Watch the helpers,
fiscal year
as Mr. Rogers says.
Budget request. I welcome Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Kane, and Acting Controller McDonald. As we review the past 5 months, the President and the Department of Defense have much to be proud of. The administration has largely succeeded in refocusing the Pentagon on warfighting. Our recruitment numbers have dramatically improved. That is a very important achievement and one we will continue to celebrate. The U.S. military has played a significant supporting role in the President's wholesale success at our southern border. He has achieved operational control over the situation, a position the vast majority of Americans support. In Operation Rough Rider, the President imposed costs on the Houthis. The operation was well executed by our service members, and it appears to have achieved its stated objectives for now. Similarly, the President has relentlessly struck al-Qaeda and ISIS terrorists. Those strikes have helped to open up space for diplomatic breakthroughs in Syria, and they have prevented significant external attacks that could have emanated from Somalia. Unfortunately, the axis of aggressors is resilient. It is hell-bent on challenging American global leadership. It is clearer than ever that Vladimir Putin is uninterested in President Trump's and President Zelensky's offers for real peace negotiations. The Europeans are heeding
a whole lot of words about spending. What about generating wealth, generating
we see significant holes.
Living standards,
shipbuilding, tactical fighters, basic maintenance money, and more.
Basic
maintenance with reaction, money. Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, it is amazing. I watched the president. Listen. I gave you time. I watched the president warn the people of Tehran, and we'll show more video of it, to get out. And there's like millions of people listening to Donald Trump. They're not getting that message from the leadership of Iran. They're getting it from the President of the United States, showing that he cares about human life.
Well, listen, President Trump throughout this conflict has been fantastic. I spoke to the president on Sunday and just told him, I said, your leadership has been so critical on this. And he made clear Iran is not getting a nuclear weapon, and he is standing with Israel. I believe our position should be we stand unequivocally with the state of Israel. And I'll make a point. Israel is doing an enormous favor to the United States right now. I believe the most acute near-term security threat facing America is the threat of a nuclear Iran, because the Ayatollah is a religious nutcase. He is a theocratic mass murderer, and when he chants death to America and death to Israel, he does so in front of mobs
I've heard that
of people.
Sales pitch before.
And what Israel has said is, we are going to act. Israel's a tiny country. It's the size of the state of New Jersey, and they are taking out Iran's military with surgical precision. They're taking out virtually all of the senior leaders of the military. They're taking out their nuclear scientists. They are leveling nuclear facilities on the ground. And I think President Trump is exactly right to say we stand with Israel. And I'm with the 75% of Americans that agree with the president's strong stance to keep America safe. That's the commander-in-chief's #1 job, to protect American lives and keep America safe. That's what Donald Trump is doing today.
You know,
Senator, to make America
this has been discussed for so
wealthy,
many on the verge of bankruptcy.
Keep America
but we are where we are today, and it's a minute to midnight, and they're at 60% enrichment. In less than a month, they can have weapons-grade uranium, according to every report that has been published, and even the IAEA, not exactly a conservative group. So it seems like this is the moment that will forever end their nuclear ambition. To me, that moment, we cannot miss the moment.
I agree, and you rightly identified in your opening monologue, Israel can take out virtually all of this. The one location that they have a technological challenge with is Fordow, and Fordow is built into the base of a mountain. It's deliberately built to be able to withstand air assault, and America has bunker buster bombs that could destroy Fordow, and I think it is very much in America's interest to see that nuclear research lab destroyed. Look, Iran is not researching nuclear technology because the Ayatollah is worried about climate change. He's researching nuclear technology for one reason: to create nuclear warheads to be able to murder as many Israelis as he can and as many Americans as he can. And the president is rightly focused. He is not going to let a theocratic lunatic murder Americans. And I will say there's some in the political debate that
if
are
it's not
urging the
about
president essentially to be isolationist,
weapons,
not to
then why not
engage and not to
offer
defend America.
Iran a
Donald J. Trump
pathway
has never been
to
isolationist. He doesn't want to
nuclear
get us into
power
unnecessary
plants?
wars.
Right.
We're not going to see boots on the ground in Iran.
We're
But
not going
if
to
you
see
look at the
boots on the
first term,
ground.
President
I'm sure they'll delete that in a couple of weeks if they do go and do that.
And here we go, Israeli jets streaking through the skies over Iran, hammering military targets, including missile launchers and Iranian nuclear facilities.
This as Iran continues firing missiles into central Israel and now warning if the U.S. gets involved, there will be, quote, serious, irreparable
Called Mission Creep.
And Mike Tobin is live
Mission
in Tel
Creep.
Aviv with the
You know,
latest for us. Good morning, Mike.
A little happening at a time.
Good
and
morning,
then
Ainsley. Now this
you
is a
look
nightly
back
routine
and
of
all
people
of a
here in
sudden
central
you're
Israel were sent
20
running for the
years
bomb
in
shelters in the
Afghanistan,
middle of the night with more Iranian ballistic
thousands
missile
of
attacks.
troops
Two attacks
dead,
came just
injured,
after midnight local
traumatized.
time. The IDFs of some 30 launches of missiles were detected in missile defense
32,000
systems.
almost
Did their job. We heard multiple
veterans throughout
explosions
the
in the
United
sky over
States
Tel
as we
Aviv.
speak.
The IDF says
every day.
that several missiles did get through,
Abandoned.
resulting in damage but no injury. Remarkable video from the sky over Jerusalem as a ballistic missile re-enters the atmosphere, creating a fireball in the sky. The IDF says no injuries as a result of that missile either. The IDF confirms one of the drones is down. Iran claims to have shot it down. Israel says no one was hurt, and the wreckage of the drone will not provide an information breach to the Iranians. Iran's supreme leader sent a message over Iranian TV. He refused President Trump's demand for unconditional surrender and threatened irreparable consequences if the U.S. gets directly involved. That was a threat echoed by a top Iranian diplomat.
We are totally ready to give appropriate response. We will start responding to United States.
Israeli fighter jets were busy in the skies over Iran last night. They hit 5 attack helicopters that were on the ground, according to the IDF, as well as hitting production sites and launchers for ballistic missiles. Also hit some key nuclear enrichment sites on the ground in Tehran. The Israeli Air Force now boasts air superiority over Iran, saying that they have badly degraded the air defenses to such an extent they can fly over Iran without much risk of being shot down. Guys, back to you.
So, with the Ayatollah's statements, does that make one think that we should worry about our assets in the region, Michael?
Well, you do see some repositioning
I've always
of
wondered,
the
like, why
missile
doesn't
launchers
Fox
from
News
Iran,
have their headquarters in like a
is not
red
entirely
state?
clear if they are repositioning
Like in
to
the most
aim at
progressive
U.S.
city
bases, say in
in
Iraq or some other
America,
locations.
and they're
But clearly they're making
they're
those
always,
threats, and
doing the
U.S.
culture wars
forces are
against
on alert
cities
because
like
of those
New York.
threats.
Mike, where are those
be funny to
bases
have
in the Middle East?
Fox News headquarters
Well, you have bases
filming
in
like
Iraq in particular. You have
Houston
naval assets in the
or
region. You have U.S. forces that have been in Syria. You have
Carolina.
somewhere around 40,000 troops that are based in the
you
region.
know, just walk the
And then
talk.
you got
right?
Qatar,
Like,
too.
Yep.
Mike,
Go,
just to be
go
clear,
for it, man.
the Supreme Leader hasn't
Live that
offered
lifestyle
any
that
type
you
of recommendation
want everybody
of
else
peace
to live.
or to get back to the negotiating
You can
table
see
to try
Radio
to convince
City
the
in the
president
background there.
that he doesn't want a nuclear weapon, right?
Well, you have heard some Iranian representatives say that they're interested in a return to the negotiating table, but the Supreme Leader, you get more of this bombastic type statements coming out.
Yeah. Can you imagine the first time he leaves the country, it'll be in exile. There is.
So anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles forcing a veteran affairs
Yippity,
clinic to shut
yappity,
down
yippity,
and cancel
yappity.
over 1,800
on the
appointments for
trail.
veterans. Now Secretary of Veteran Affairs Doug Collins is demanding answers from California leaders like Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass, who he says
How's
allow
our
rioters to
veteran?
run wild
How's
in the city.
our
And he
veterans?
joins us now. I
How's
mean, this
our
is
homeless
ridiculous. Some of the
veterans?
services
How's our
that
homeless
clinic that you
veterans?
run provide cancer care, suicide prevention, pain management, amputation care, traumatic brain injury. That's TBIs. The suicide services is the main thing that just has me outraged.
It is, and this is what's bad, Lawrence. They just let it build and let it build, and then they ran, muck in our clinic out there, which is an ambulatory clinic, which is really important because the ambulatory clinic is where people can walk into, they have appointments, but it's accessible, especially to those down in downtown who need that care. And to have this ability not to give them that care, we've transferred as much as we can to telehealth, we've transferred as much as we can, but there's nothing that displaces being able to actually take care of them in that. So look, I'm tired of this idea that we're trying to help our veterans self-care, but yet we're letting the folks in LA run wild and graffiti our buildings and do the things that stop us from actually taking care of our veterans.
So what happens to those veterans that are there? Like, what do they hop on a bus and go somewhere? We know some of them
help
don't
out.
have
What
the
should we
means
do
to do
other
so.
than
I mean,
say that this is an atrocity?
Not the city
This is
step in and make it right.
outrageous.
Well, see, this is what happens when you get into these discussions all the time, Lawrence. We talk about it's the riders and the peaceful riders, which we know they're not peaceful. We see what they're doing. They're throwing stuff at ICE. They're taking it out on the police. But yet, what we don't always talk about, and what Gavin Newsom and undoubtedly the mayor doesn't
Feels
want to
like
talk
an
about, is the
infomercial.
impact to the people who are just trying to live their lives.
I always complained about the VA. How bad is it when you got reins of it?
Well, it's a lost its focus, Lawrence, and I think that's the one thing I want to say for folks who've been in the VA. We're now about the veteran. That's all we're about. We're taking care of our veteran. We're a service organization that says we're going to make sure that the veteran gets taken care of. And I know that sounds strange, but it's
32
really
homeless
not.
veterans.
Because if an organization loses its purpose, then...
Also this, moments ago, breaking at the Supreme
32,000.
Court, the justices there have issued a decision on Tennessee's ban on sex reassignment medical care for minors. The Supreme Court upholding the Tennessee law that bans certain types of gender-affirming care. Let's bring in Shannon Bream on this. Shannon, it's the first time really that the High Court is considering this type of care or restrictions on this
You
type
would
of care
believe,
for
even in
children
Canada, the
America.
paperwork that
Yeah, and this has been one of the
Canadian
most
Armed Forces
watched
veterans have
cases
to
of the
fill out,
entire
man.
term
I've
because
seen
there are
that
many other
paperwork.
states that also
and
have
just imagine
some
doing
kind
it
of
with
limit or
a
ban
broken
on trans
brain.
treatment
Like,
for minor
holy
children.
shit.
So this has gotten a
They
ton of
really
attention, and
fucking
essentially the court's ruling
have
6-3.
no
There are
idea how to
concurrences
help
and breaks here and there.
veterans.
But the majority opinion says this. They says this case carries with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety
It
of
just
medical
shows, like,
treatments in the
how
evolving field. They
when
say
you
there are a
have
lot of
something
different
as
studies out
mysterious
there.
as
They
the
came out during
brain
arguments. Some
injured,
of them saying other countries have
you know,
limited or backed
people
off
don't really
these
do
treatments
the,
for minors, but they say that's not our
you know,
our
the
place, our
benefit
decision
of a
to make.
doubt
But essentially
and
says our
help
role is
them
not
out.
to judge the wisdom, fairness, or logic of the law, but just to ensure that it does not violate the
I've
equal
even had,
protection
like,
guarantee of the 14th Amendment. They said
like,
this law survives that scrutiny. So
veterans
essentially, concluding that it does,
ombudsman
we leave questions of
tell me
policy to
that,
the
you know, we have
people,
to
their
treat the
elected
veterans
representatives,
like
and the
adults.
democratic process. Essentially saying,
Like,
Tennessee
yeah,
has
just because
passed
they're
this
injured
law.
doesn't
We're
mean
not
they're
going to
trying
step in.
to
We think that it passes
be like
the constitutional
children.
muster of the 14th Amendment. So Tennessee
And he
can
was like,
continue
"Oh, I didn't say-
under
I
this
didn't
law
say
to
that."
ban specific treatments that
Sounds
are
like you're
trans-related
saying
for
they're not being like
minors.
adults.
And the
but-
other states out there, 20 plus of them, who
Yeah,
have these
that's
laws,
where we
will also
are
take
with
great
the
reassurance
health
that the
sciences
court
of
is
the
signing off
brain.
on what they've done.
Neuroscience.
Right now, Shannon, Justice Sotomayor is reading the dissent. And part of what she wrote is that this court now authorizes untold harm to transgender
Tennessee.
children and the parents and families who love them, end quote. How big of a setback is this for the transgender movement?
Well, it is in these states where there's a dividing line in this country about states who think that this is good policy for minors to have these treatments available, and
Usually
others
they
like
only
Tennessee
do
who
this
think it doesn't. And
transgender
Tennessee had
news,
argued
like,
that they had a state
around
interest, a
election
compelling government
season.
interest in making sure that these
Yes.
treatments did not proceed for young people. But it is one of those
Bigoted
things
people,
that,
they
that
very
feels like
easily
it's
get
making the country more red
disgusted
and
and
more blue
afraid
in
of
concentrated
anything that
ways
they
because there will be
don't
people who may
understand,
decide
that
where they
don't want
live
to
based on
understand.
these laws and these decisions. She does talk about this in her dissent. She says the court's willingness here to strike down this law and get into the
But yeah, there's
healthcare
some
bans
good
does
stories,
damage.
though,
She
in
says
the
irrevocable damage to the
LGBT
Equal Protection
community
Clause
of,
and invites
you know, getting
legislators
kicked out
to
of the
engage
house,
in
and
discrimination
sometimes
by
that's the
hiding
best thing
blatant
that
sex
happened to
classifications
them,
in
and
plain sight. Again, as
they
she
were
said,
able
she said,
to
without second thought, you're increasing
find their way
untold
and
harm
live
to
their
transgender
lives
children, their parents, and their families.
and
She says
be
there's
seen
no
as
constitutional
people
justification for this, so I dissent.
and find their
so
community.
a split there, big decision. We didn't think we might get it until next week. There are a few more percolating out there, but this is one
Right,
we've
in
been
those red
watching.
states, you know, they're
Shannon, we know that
not exactly
this decision
generating any
wrapped
wealth
in
anyway.
consideration for puberty blockers and
And
hormone
they're the
therapy. What about
welfare
surgery, the
states.
other contentious issue?
Well,
in
that
play?
wasn't a
Taking,
part of this case,
taking that
essentially, which
sweet
was, you know, a little bit of a mystery
tax
to folks
money
about
from
why that
California.
part of this was not challenged. But there are different parts to this law. So for right now, what it's saying is none of the puberty blockers can be done. None of those hormonal things can be offered to kids. Maybe there's
such a
another
small
legal fight to
percentage of
come over the
population.
surgery aspect.
The goal of Visionary Voices is to empower marginalized communities through creative outlets to amplify voices and drive social change. Alois Nashali joins us to talk about the program and their upcoming community short film screening and discussion panel. Alois, really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as
We're
well.
talking a little bit beforehand. I want to know more about this. What is Visionary Voices? Tell us about
Inspirational.
the mission.
Yes, so Visionary Voices, it's a youth-led initiative, and it basically was created to
Power of seeing
help drive
possibilities.
some social change and amplify the voices of marginalized youth, especially in a medium of video production and media stuff.
You do it through that, through pictures, through video production, not only just showing the film, but actually creating it from start to finish. Here we're watching some of these kids here tackling this. I mean, I'm thinking about the program itself. Can you tell us about the workshop and how that evolves?
So we did a 2 weeks video production workshop, free video production workshop with newcomer youth and refugee claimants, and the goal was to have them showcase or show their lived experiences, and in a way that they can, try to advocate for some social change in the community. So having their voices,
bringing visibility,
included in the decision-making tables. That was the main goal.
Making
and now
space, giving platforms.
The end of those activities, they
That
have
is
done,
leadership.
Multiple videos
This person
based on the topic that
has
they are
leadership
interested
qualities.
to them.
Yes.
So now we will be doing a showcase event or screening event at the Rideau Community Hub this Saturday. And everybody's invited from the community, from the decision makers. They're all invited. We're going to have to screen those movies that the youth have made.
Well, graduation is an exciting time for young people moving on to start their careers after their education.
Hope for young
but it can
people.
sometimes be a scary time too. Technological innovations are changing the way that we do work and completely changing the market. There are also worries about the ongoing and unpredictable trade war with the United States that could impact jobs and opportunities on our side of the border. Here to discuss this with us today during our Grad Week is Gabriel Miller. He's the president and CEO of Universities Canada. I feel like you were the perfect person to come in during this time during Grad Week. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
It's great to be here, Will.
So there's a lot of fear around AI, which I do want to get to. But first, it's Grad Week, the younger generation thinking about their
Feeling
future.
fresh.
What's the vibe like
Feeling
amongst all the youth?
spunky.
You know, Will, the
Feeling
best part
ready.
of my job is at the end of the school year, I get to go to a lot of graduation ceremonies across the country. And you see a look on people's faces, a look on their parents' faces that maybe they only have 3 or 4 times in their life. I mean, this is one of the really big formative moments. And when I talk to grads, they know they're graduating into a scary world. They know in some ways things feel very, very crazy. But they've lived through a pandemic. They know that they can deal with scary things. And all they're looking for is opportunity. And one of the reasons I'm so proud to work for universities is that's really what universities are about. They're about opportunity. And still today, in 2025, for most people, there's nothing that'll open more doors to more opportunity than studying in a university. And the chance to continue doing that is what inspires me. And I think it's what gives our graduates a lot of hope for the future.
Definitely, and it's such a good point. You've already gone through something that not a lot of us went through with COVID, with the pandemic. So already new things that maybe you're not familiar with, so you kind of structure that a little bit. But with AI,
You've been through
there's
tougher
such
times.
a fear around
You
it.
can get through the new
But there's
tough
also
times.
the other side where you can utilize it towards your advantage. What's the thought process when you're talking to the grads about the future in a positive way?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I'm a little older than your average university grad, so I can confess to being scared of it myself. I mean, when I see what AI is capable of, it makes me wonder, boy, what does the future look like? And the truth is, no one really knows for sure how these tools are going to change the workplace and the world, but we're all pretty sure they're going to change them in a big way. And I think what's important for young people is to remember you have a strategic advantage here. you're going to be graduating into a world where, yes, AI is changing jobs and disrupting the way things work, but you're also going to graduate into a world where business owners and managers and government leaders are desperate for people to help them use these tools effectively in their workplace. And as a young person, you're going to have more familiarity, probably a bit more comfort with some of these tools. So lean into that, because if you can develop that knowledge
on your
and walk
resume.
into a job interview and say, I understand these tools and I know how they can help your business, you've got a leg up.
Take the fear.
I know how to
become
enter in
so
just the right
knowledgeable on
prompt,
subject,
get
and then it
just
turns
the right
into an advantage,
answer.
which I think is such great advice. On that same subject, are you
Trust
seeing
me, bro.
AI change some of the jobs that some of these grads might be thinking about once they actually graduate? How is that kind of affecting the market in the job industry?
You know, what people are saying is this is a horizontal change, which means that this isn't about
This is not the right
one
camera
industry or
angle.
one type of job.
This is a weird
is a
camera
tool
angle.
that transforms how things are done in pretty much every sector of the economy, right? If it's about accounting,
Pretty sure
if it's about data management,
they made
if
a
it's
new
about
law
the
in
law, we're
England
seeing
about
that the ability of AI to process information and
Processing.
Joining us now live from Washington is Minnesota Democratic Senator Tina Smith, who has known Melissa and Mark Hortman for years and saw them at a Democratic Party function the night before they died.
Are the champions,
going on.
my friends. La 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 la. Another way to break up your energy throughout the day is just break out in song. Your life is a musical. The rest is unwritten. I got a pocket for the sunshine. I got a pocket. Just let that free-flowing Virginia Woolf flow of consciousness throughout you like a comic strip. Wham! And then suddenly you're feeling brand new. You're brought back to the present moment. Your narrative totally reset. We're going to find that pharmaceutical, we're going to find that pill that can completely just reset you. I'm joking. But it's great to have those little cheat codes that can help you refresh your day in this spontaneous landscape. You are beautiful. You are beautiful in every single way. Yes. Words can't bring you down.